Welcome to Bonn Park. I'm Sarah Geidlinger.
And I'm Marshall Ward.
And I just turned 45.
Happy birthday.
Thanks, Marshall. Today on the podcast, we have Ren Navarro.
She is such an insightful, wonderful, and fun interview.
Ren has a special job. She is a beer expert and an alcohol expert, but she's also a diversity educator with her projects Beer Diversity and Do Better, Be Better.
This one flew by for me it felt like minutes.
Yeah, she's a lot of fun. We're also huge fans of her podcast, Ren Likes to Talk. It is laid back. She's just chilling and talking to her buds. And I always learn something.
Yeah, it's my new favorite podcast.
Like basically what air feels like when you drink absinthe. Here she is, Ren Navarro.
Welcome to Bonn Park.
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 Do you enjoy Bonn Park podcast?
If so, we would really appreciate it if you
Leave a review.
like, rate, subscribe, but most importantly,
Share directly from the platforms.
with your family and friends. That's the best way to get the word out to everybody, and more people will get to see our show that way. So click those like buttons and share our show. Thank you.
Thanks.
On with the show. This is it. Bonn Park is supported by Waterloo Brewing. Since they first opened their doors in 1984, Waterloo Brewing has invited thirsty beer lovers to pour the boar. A symbol of strength and courage, the boar is a fitting symbol for Waterloo Brewing. The company is not only Ontario's first craft brewer, in operation decades before the current microbrew trend, but it is also the largest. To pour the boar is to taste an Ontario brewing tradition that is always evolving. The core recipes on which they built their success remain the same, using only fresh and simple ingredients. Waterloo Brewing's balanced quality beers like their traditional IPA, dark amber, and craft lager were created to be enjoyed year-round. Perfect for sweltering summers, their crisp and refreshing fruit radlers have been wildly popular. These drinks blend craft lager with real fruit juice to create sweet and punchy flavors like watermelon, tart cherry, raspberry pineapple, and Waterloo Brewing's award-winning grapefruit. Waterloo Brewing's beer store is located at 400 Bingham Center Drive in Kitchener, or visit them online for free local boar-to-door home delivery at waterloobrewing.com. Whether you've been pouring the boar since 1984 or you've never poured the boar before, Waterloo Brewing has your perfect pour in store. We are supported by Green Beaver. Since 2002, Green Beaver has provided sustainable products for everyday life, like all-natural shampoos, toothpaste, antiperspirants, soaps, and more. Just in time for summer, Green Beaver has mineral sunscreens that are free of harmful chemicals and leave no sticky residue. They've also got organic beeswax lip balms made with extracts from Canadian cranberries and raspberries. And for the little ones, they've got soothing soaps and lotions made for delicate baby skin. The busy beavers behind Green Beaver have backgrounds in biochemistry and microbiology. They know the science behind their products, and they know what feels good. Take care of yourself and your family with the help of Green Beaver. Find Green Beaver products at Goodness Me in Waterloo. Visit greenbeaver.com and follow them on social media. I will tell you, we use the Green Beaver shampoo and conditioner around this house, and it makes a huge difference. Bonn Park is supported by Gifted in Waterloo. Gifted has some of the quirkiest, funkiest, and coolest gifts you'll find anywhere, like tea infusers, mugs, cozy reading socks, plant pots, cushions, and throw blankets, along with amazing puzzles and games. Want the perfect gift for that hard-to-buy for special someone? Whether you're looking for something nerdy, literary, cute, funny, bizarre, local, nostalgic, or unexpected, Gifted has it. Among all the unique items from around the world are amazing creations by local artists, along with one-of-a-kind greeting cards. You're bound to find what you're looking for, even if you have no idea what you're looking for, at Gifted. Shop online at giftedwaterloo.com and check them out on Facebook and Instagram. Happy Natural Products is supported by Bonn Park. We've all become very familiar with hand sanitizer over the past year, and with the itchy, dry skin that it can cause. Want to stay sanitized and keep your skin moist? Happy Natural Products has a sanitizing spray that is perfect for even the most sensitive skin. To go with your clean, moisturized hands, you can get one of Happy Natural Products' stylish 3-layer organic cotton face masks for both kids and adults. Under your mask, keep your teeth pearly white with Happy Natural's antibacterial and biodegradable toothbrushes that are gentle on teeth and gums. Made for a beautiful, strong, and happy world, check out their entire line of amazing stuff, like their gua sha, facial and body massage rollers, tools owner Jennifer's family has used for generations, at happynaturalproducts.com, and find them on social media. You can still pamper yourself in a pandemic. Get happy. I just flipped over to a different network, hoping that helps. And this seems a little more clear, so we'll get started.
Yeah, I'm plugged into the modem. So
yeah, no, I think it's at my end. There might be a little one Minecrafting upstairs, so that might be
yes.
They've got to connect with their friends somehow,
right?
They gotta they can't go out. Like they see each other in the street, and it's like a quick wave. It's awful. Yeah. So Ren Navarro, thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure.
We've been very excited to talk to you. As you know, we found your account on Instagram. We got very interested in what you do. Of course, we love beer. Of course, we're interested in diversity, but your podcast really reeled us in. Me and Marshall are hooked. We love Ren Likes to Talk.
Thank you.
So it's kind of a new endeavor for you. It's been a couple months, maybe 3 months.
Yeah, it's been 3 or 4 months.
Yeah.
It started recording in December, but I'm lazy, and so there were some breaks in between. But it's been running, I guess, since mid-January.
Yeah, we've been binging it. We're big fans.
What drew me in right away was it's so laid back.
Yes,
it's such a natural, breezy conversation.
Yeah, I think the whole thing was the rule is it has to be a friend. I can't learn about people through it. But it's inevitably I end up learning something because my friends are varied across what they do. But yeah, my whole thing was just to have a conversation. It's it's the middle of a pandemic. Who are you seeing? My friends are across the world, and so this is my great excuse to kind of have some time to just catch up.
I have to say, we've started this project, I think July 2019, and we started posting last January, and thank God we had it. If we didn't have this creative outlet to talk to strangers and ask them about their lives, I'm not really sure how I would have gotten through it. You said something great on this week's episode, which was, I'm going to check my notes here. It was in regards to working from home, and you're like, it gets old quick. I want to go out and be annoyed by people again. I am ready to be annoyed by people again. And I was like, I relate. I can relate to this.
Yeah. I honestly, with work, I've spent 2 years of traveling, and I wasn't really home a lot. So the first few weeks of the pandemic was very me being every day being like, babe, I'm still home. This is the longest I've been home in 6 months. And 3 weeks in, I was like, I'm still home. Now what do I do?
It took me a little longer. I was in the honeymoon work from home stage for maybe about 6 to 8 months. And then it hit pretty hard where I was like, okay, this dream is not what I thought it was. This is all the work all the time. And it's not go at your own pace. It's go at the fastest pace you possibly can, while also dealing with some online school and, helping to support your spouse. It's a lot.
It's a lot. And I think that the big piece too, especially at the beginning, was just you didn't know how to stop yourself. Because you kind of had that where do I have to be? So why don't I just work? And, and my wife works from home. And I remember the first while I'd have to go and be like, hello, I'm your 30-minute warning that you should start wrapping up because you've been working for 10 hours. And because it was just well, what do I do? And I mean, early days, what were you watching? You were watching Tiger King.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, I forgot about that. That seems so long ago now.
Right? Because it was 8 years ago.
God damn that Carol Baskins.
Hey, this was your dream, eh? When you were a kid, this is what you wanted to do when you grew up.
Yeah, Totally. No.
I can't wait to become a beer expert.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that. You have beer diversity and be better, do better.
Do better, be better.
I have it backwards. I'm not even going to cut that out because I just fucked up and we're just going to leave it in there. Okay, people?
Yeah, it changes the whole meaning.
So the first one is, so beer diversity is you're cultivating diversity in beer and beyond. That's your tagline. And then do better, be better is like fostering education and mentorship.
Yeah.
Tell us all about that.
So do better, be better is new, and it's the non-alcoholic version of beer diversity. So that, which, again, I mean, this is one of those like, and then I started a company during a pandemic and a bunch of people were like, well, why would you do that? And I said, because it's the time to like actually get it right. And so the aim is to provide mentorship and leadership for, just like marginalized and racialized kids. And, when I say kids, like high school to university age, but it includes those who can't go to university because socioeconomic disparities keep certain people from pursuing, higher education. So it's just about having a roster of mentors that will be available to talk and either kind of like, I have general ideas, or I have a business plan. Is this ridiculous? Like, what do you think I can do? Or, hey, I didn't know I could have a job like you. Can we talk about this? And kind of splitting it out into these, like 15-minute to 60-minute sessions, obviously on Zoom, which, part of the idea down the line is how to get kids without access to computers and internet to be able to take part in this, but that'll be down the line. So right now it's a lot of setup. I've got 40 mentors signed up to help out, which I think is fantastic from all different backgrounds. Yeah. So it's, everything from arts to legal to science to like name a thing. There's probably someone. And so it just, right now it's just planning it, getting it together with the hopes of really launching it early summer. And then beer diversity has been going for a few years. It'll be 3 years this Friday, I think.
Congrats.
Thanks. So that's been going for a few years. And that whole thing is about making diversity less of a scary idea. I think because diversity and inclusion are just these big, huge buzzwords that people are scared to talk about because everyone's afraid they'll get it wrong. And it's really just about allowing for people to have safe spaces to ask questions that they can't normally ask, and how do I at this company do this thing? And when I started, the focus was purely beer. Now it's education, it's wine, it's spirits, it's anything. And it's gone fairly international. So the pandemic has been good for business because everyone's on Zoom, which means I can do a presentation in the morning to someone in Texas and chat with Ohio, and then chat with Kitchener, Waterloo, and chat with Montreal. So it's been really fantastic in terms of the reach of it.
And those presentations, how do you open them up? Like what's your first couple minutes look like in engaging them?
It's usually just kind of the story of what I've gone through. It's, I worked in beer previously, so I've worked in retail and I've worked in sales, and I've worked at, I think it's in 6 different breweries over a period of 6 or 7 years, and just kind of saying like, here is my experience, and here, I worked with a group of good people. And then suddenly it was like, hey, how does it feel to be a Black woman in beer? And it was like, wait, what? I never thought about it because no one ever made it a thing. And here's why we should make it a thing. And here's why we should try and address these pieces. And just, I find by giving a personal story of what I've gone through and making it not angry, because everyone expects it to be angry and like, you suck, this sucks, this is terrible, burn it down. Making it, like just kind of being like, no, I really love it. And I'm still beer adjacent because I still love it so much. And so really it's just kind of that personal level of like, here's me, and now let's figure out you.
My father worked for Labatt's, but first Carling and then Labatt's for over 35 years, I guess. And my mother and I would go pick him up. I guess he'd work, a night shift or a day shift, and we'd pick him up at 4:00, and this big horn would go off, and like hundreds of white men would pour out of the Labatt's. And I was a kid, and I remember the smell of yeast, and I never gave much thought to it. That I don't know why there weren't women working in that factory. Like I watched Laverne and Shirley, I knew women worked in factories, but anyways,
right.
But But why do you think that was? If you could imagine that picture in the late 70s, me going to help pick up my dad, and it was just all white men in beige suits, polyester, I guess, that said Labatt's on them.
Because women couldn't have their own credit cards until the early 70s. I mean, it's, you just like think of that and think of women being able to open their own bank accounts without their husband's signature. Like that was till the early 70s. So it's pretty easy to answer why was it a bunch of white guys pouring out of a building in the 70s? Because women weren't really welcome to do that kind of job. And, and forget seeing any kind of racial diversity or any of those things. Like that's just, it's not a thing. And I think that advertisements of the day, so the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, think of it, it was always the housewife goes and gets the beer for her husband. There's like a series of ads that if you can find them, they're terrible, but the husband is his wife has burned dinner and he's, the tagline's like, oh, at least you didn't burn the beer. And it's like, Schlitz, a man's beer. Like, so it's like, and I mean, it was that time where, manly men did manly things. You smoked, you wrestled bears, and you worked, in a brewery. And so, yeah, I think that's with that being held as a social construct of that period of time, it makes it harder all these years later to really get out of that fully, because you're also looking at a period of time where if you drank a beer, you were loyal to that beer, right? So if you drank Bud Light, that's all you drank. You didn't care about anything else. You were like, Bud Light till I die. And now with all of these different craft breweries and the macro guys buying up stuff and all of these places popping up, no one ever says, I'm just going to drink this one beer until the sun burns out. You're going to drink that beer now, and then 20 minutes later, you're going to go and grab something different from your fridge, right? So we're trying to chip away at something that was socially constructed as what the norm should be. And it ignored a very large sector of humans.
Yeah, I have 2 points, and I'm not making either of them well. The first one is, I think of this when people talk about the divorce rate rising and how it's, it's a terrible thing. And they're like, no, women just have freedom to actually get their shit together and leave someone that they're not happy being with or could be in danger with. It wasn't actually like logistically possible before that point. Also, just about the brands that you're talking about the brand loyalty. Yeah. Like my parents were OV and 50 all the way for sure. Yeah. But isn't that part of the culture now? I mean, maybe I'm talking in baby terms and in terms of like craft brewery knowledge, but that's part of the fun is that you're trying all these different things. Oh, who is this? Someone's on your lap here.
This is one of the beer cats. This is Stella.
Hi, Stella.
She likes to make her appearances during Zoom calls.
I love that she's only showing us her ass.
Yeah. She's like, what's up?
Yeah.
What's up?
She's talking to you. I love that. That's fantastic.
I have 4 cats, and I'm proud to say I can tell just by the tail that is a female cat.
Oh, look at you.
Why?
Oh, the female cat's tails are always up, like in the air.
Really?
Yeah, and the male tails are kind of more.
Oh. I've only ever had female cats, so I just assumed that was an all cat thing. But thanks for that. I had no idea.
Kind of like rocking my world here now. Now I know that the orange, fat, tabby cat that walks by my window where I work every day is definitely a male.
Yep.
Huh. Learn something new every day.
I know, right? I'm going back to bed.
That's it. It's been great having you. Thanks, Ren.
Thank you.
Brought to you by World's Best Cat Litter.
Is that a real brand?
Yeah,
you should hit them up.
Yeah, it is.
$44.99 at PetSmart.
Oh, good to know.
Amazing.
2 sponsors there. So I'm a beer lover, but I'm one of these weaklings that has developed celiac. And so I really miss my beer. Yeah. Thank you for that face. I can see the sorrow on your face, but Marshall is a craft beer dude. Mm-hmm. Like you love them
for sure.
You're always exploring. I think that you and Ren have a lot to talk about there.
Yeah, and Waterloo Region is an amazing place to be right now, isn't it, Ren, for craft beer?
Yeah, it really is. It's changing a lot, and I think I was a Toronto kid up until 4.5 years ago, almost 5 years ago, and to be out here when I was a sales rep coming from Toronto and kind of seeing what was changing and who was carrying what and how they were talking about things. And I think that when Arabella opened up, people in Toronto like lost their minds because suddenly it was like, wait, you get good stuff too? And it's like, yeah, I mean, we got Ben's Elbow, we've got Arabella, we've got Sidewalk Beer Shop. Like those 3 places alone, that's all you need.
And what was your first experience with sour beer? For me, it was a Nickel Brook, and it was coriander and cucumber. And for me, it changed my world, but it's not everybody's taste, right?
I'm old and I get heartburn if you look at me wrong. So I don't.
We're old too, Ren.
Right. So I don't really drink sours. I mean, I like lambics, but it's always like a small amount to say I had some. So I think initially when I started drinking beer, I was in my 20s and I didn't care what it was, just as long as it was refreshing. But I think also I'm from Trinidad. And my mom always had said, beer is the thing that you drink to cool you down, right? Like it's 35 degrees out, you're really hot. Beer is going to quench that thirst. And so I didn't grow up thinking beer was going to be a thing that you just like drank. Like, I'm just chilling, I'll just grab a beer. And then I got to university and it was like, you mean I can just drink this because I can drink it? And so then it didn't matter what it was. And I think that it was Keith's, Alexander Keith's IPA. Was my jam. And then I learned what an IPA was later on and was like, that's not knocking them, but that's not an IPA.
Yeah, that's right. Those first jobs working in beer, what did they look like?
And I mean, this is a decade ago. And at that point, getting women in beer was a big venture. And so it was really like, how many women can we get working here in sales or in retail or in whatever? And I think that was the push for the diversity at that point. And we didn't really talk about diversity otherwise. Like it was just, are you a nice person and can you work hard? Great, you have a job here. And actually my first job was retail at Great Lakes in Etobicoke. And they have an incredibly diverse brewing staff. So to be in there and see this, different backgrounds of people working, predominantly men, but seeing different backgrounds of people, I didn't think like, oh, this isn't the norm. And it wasn't until later on that I started going to different breweries and being like, oh, that's not the norm. That's, that was kind of like a one-off. But I think that as time went on, there were, slow changes. It's baby steps. I think first and foremost, breweries are really concerned with beer and keeping the lights on and selling their product. And then they're kind of like, we just want you to be nice people. And then it's kind of like, oh, I guess background matters too, because it's a larger pool of folks that can be drinking the product. But yeah, early days, it was just about getting more women involved.
What were those steps like? I guess when Marshall, that's a fantastic answer, of course. But when Marshall asked that question, I get very visual and I'm like, yeah, are you like slinging cases? Are you capping? What are you doing? And then now you're at this point where you're a beer expert and you're consulting to craft breweries. Like, what is that journey like?
Yeah, at the start, it was really learning about beer. So it was, at that point, taking courses and also back in the day, because there weren't a lot of women, there was a lot of challenge of like, do you really know what you're talking about? And so
still struggle with that sometimes.
I still, you know what? I tell a story where like a couple of years ago, a sales rep was in doing a sales. I do beer buying for some bars, and he didn't bring in samples. And at some point asked me if I really drank beer. And I was like, what
do you think I'm doing here, buddy?
Also, have you seen me? Like, this body is built like beer. Like, what are you talking about?
That was an assumption based on that you're female. That was the...
Well, I think like he came in early and I would be at the bar early. So just before 11, or like quote, air quotes early, right? Because everyone with like a 9 to 5 job's like, wait, what?
Wait, that's noon. That's lunchtime. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. I was like, so I'd be there super early, like 10:30. And I think I was drinking a cup of tea when he walked in, but that was my usual. Like I would show up, have a cup of tea, check all my numbers and inventory, and then I'd have this meeting. Well, I'm not going to crack at, at 11:01 and be like, all right, beer time. But yeah, it was hilarious. And I think that as the same kind of points of when I started was that same challenge of like, how much do you know? What's your expertise and what's your background? So I take a lot of courses, and I still find that I have to have credentials for people to take me seriously.
Yeah.
Which
I struggle with that too.
Right. Yeah. And it's like, I don't get why I would want to make something up and be like, yeah, I'm a beer expert. IPA stands for Imperial Porter Association. Like, what does that get anyone? And I just, and I think that becomes a barrier to entry. And I think that I probably just stuck it out of sheer stubbornness. And also having coworkers who were going to stick up for me and take time to like help me out with stuff. But like, yeah, I still get challenged on my knowledge, and it's just like you wouldn't ask that question of a guy.
You would assume. You're right. Yeah.
Ren, in the last year especially, I've noticed with some craft breweries, they've moved away from the bottle and are going with cans. Do you have any real strong feelings about that? The kind of it looks to me like this is going to be the way things go.
I think that part of it too is just demand with what was happening with COVID and shipping and all of that fun stuff. But I think cans make sense because cans you can transport. And if you're going to go camping or you're going to go out somewhere, because like, who are you seeing, right? Like, you're not going to see your friends anymore.
I miss my friends.
But if you do happen to, right? I miss my friends. But if you're having socially distanced hangouts, like a can is easy because then you can crush it and take it away with you. And, in glass, there's this weird perception with glass, like a 500 milliliter bottle versus a 473 milliliter can. People will always say, oh, I don't know if I can finish that bottle. And it's like, it's 27 milliliters more of liquid. Like that's nothing. And so I think that perception too, is that people feel like they're getting more value with a can because we're just so, in tune with like, okay, this is, yeah, like a bottle is too big for me. It's like now we have to split it. It's like we don't. You can trust me. You can drink it on your own.
My mom used to always say this to my dad: "Can I get the neck off that beer?" And I always thought that was the weirdest thing. Just she wanted to just drink the neck of it and then give it back. Like, here, you can have the rest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've ever heard it anywhere else, but with the cans, I think it's like, it's such an easier canvas for all this beautiful artwork that's been going on beer, like really cool stuff. And I love when there's this marriage between a local brewery and a local artist. It's it's where all the happiness comes together. Right.
Yeah. And I think that we've become really visual with things. Everyone's on their phone and they're on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook, and they're looking at photos and they're looking at like imagery. And I think that with cans, a lot of people just shop for the visuals. If you're in the LCBO and you're running through, it's like what catches your eye. You're like, I'll take that. And I think if there isn't enough to grab you, you'll just be like, no, forget it. Unless it's your usual and you're like, yep, no, that's cool. But if it's you're looking for something new, you're going to look for like the shiny new thing.
I find the minimalism works really well too. Like Waterloo Brewing and Block 3, they've really nailed it when it comes to just keeping it super simple. And I find those stand out just as much as I think there's a craft beer place called Flying Monkey or something. And it's like a pretty psychedelic. And what are you drawn to as far as labels and artwork goes on the way, or not just artwork, but just how labels are presented?
I pay attention to labels mainly for work because it's about representation. And in terms of what I drink, I mean, I'll drink anything. I'm like, I ain't fussy.
I did hear the absinthe story on that latest episode of Ren Likes to Talk. And I was like, she will drink anything. That shit's crazy.
I'll totally drink anything. Yeah. I will drink anything. I saw through time and space and high-fived a higher being after I did absinthe. They did it proper too.
I know someone that had an absinthe story in New Orleans, and it ends with him like waking up in someone else's house that he didn't know, eating a pizza that he didn't order. Yeah.
That's amazing. I just had one shot of it, and by the end of it, I was like, I'm weirdly warm, and I can feel the air with my hands, like I'm petting it. And my friends had said that my pupils were just like boink. I was like, I need water. I just was like, I'm done.
Or Ren, we just got a whole education on tequila from Nick Benninger of Taco Farm and Fat Sparrow.
Nick.
Yeah, and we learned a ton about tequila and what makes for real tequila and not real tequila.
Yeah, if you have a hangover to kill all hangovers, not real tequila.
Good to know.
100% blue Weber agave. That's what you.
I've had that out there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, Ren. Can we get you back on track with regards to
that was my fault.
Yes.
Label,
right. That's
labels and what you're looking at when it comes to presentation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So representation always matters, and kind of the like, who have you picked and why have you picked them? There aren't a lot of women on labels, and if there are, like, what do they look like? Is it a boob joke?
Usually a sexy
is it something
mermaid,
powerful? Yeah. Right? Yeah, like that's great, awesome. I like Allura Brewing has Lady Friend, which isn't part of their permanent rotation, but they just brought her back last week, I think about a week ago. And the image is a woman punching a bear.
Fantastic.
I love that. But they have a whole story behind it. They're like, yeah, she's saving her lumberjack boyfriend from this bear. So like, that kind of like tongue in cheek thing, but it's a woman being really powerful, and it's just like this fun image. And I think that's really great. I love artwork by underrepresented peoples. So like BIPOC, LGBTQ plus, like whatever group you don't usually get to hear from. Collective Arts always nails that. And they do specific call outs. They did the Amplified Voices series. So it was either people who were part of those communities or they were highlighting those communities. And I think that a can, while you're sitting and you're having a drink, like you're reading the can and you're looking at it. So it's like, what does the story tell you? Does the imagery like take you somewhere? Like, does it have you being like, oh man, I wish I could go to like wherever's pictured on this, or this art's amazing and I want to learn more about the artist. And I think that those are pieces that are really important. I too really love minimalism, but I'm used to it. And I think that people who aren't used to craft beer, who still think it's like weird tasting stuff, the minimalism isn't for them. And I think you kind of need that in-betweener that like draws them in with imagery that they recognize.
There are certain words, like just recently Red Circle have rebranded themselves to Stockyard Brewing.
Yes.
And Stockyard is a word that I haven't given a ton of thought to in my life. I know what a stockyard is. And but the way they've done it, the way the font looks, the way that word looks, that's an amazing thing where you suddenly see a word through brand new eyes and a new perspective. How clever, eh?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's interesting with the rebrand, and I get the rebrand because of what they're doing in the new space, but it's almost this, like, we just got used to 3 years of Red Circle and then changing to Stockyards, which same thing. I think that the new imagery is beautiful. Like, it's absolutely gorgeous. But yeah, when I think of Stockyards, I think of like in Toronto over at St. Clair Avenue, where it's like, there are stockyards. You have not lived until you have smelled the stockyards. Don't do it, kids. Don't do it.
I've been here. Yeah. Many, many years ago. Yeah. Probably part of the, I don't know. It's part of the cultural upbringing here. You have to see it at some point.
Very earthy.
Yes.
That's one way to put it. I was going to say it's a smell that gets into your nose, and then hours later you're like, do you smell that?
It smells like spring in West Waterloo.
When you give give one of your presentations, what kind of questions do you get asked afterwards?
I think it varies wildly. It's usually like, what do we do if we get it wrong? And I think that with brewing, especially, like, I'll ask people, how many brewers are here? Have you ever dumped a batch of beer? And everyone puts their hand up, and I say, okay, well, why are you still a brewer? You messed it up. You didn't quit. You figured out how to like take a look at it and learn from it. If you do a diversity initiative and it doesn't work, you don't quit. You take a look at it and you figure it out. And so just kind of reminding people that we're human and we're going to mess things up. And that's kind of the whole point. And that you can't please everyone, because people are always worried, like, what if someone's really mad at me? And it's like, if they're really mad at you, then there's your challenge. Like, if they are mad at you and they're using their words and they're not just like, you suck, because that's a thing. And you can have a dialogue with them and you can learn and you can at least convey what you were trying to do. Like, that's a very important piece. And I think that comes up a lot. And then people just asking about, like, how do I hire diverse? And it's like, that's not where you start. That's how you end. And just kind of explaining the way to look at things, because, humans are like, I just want this thing. And I don't want to put in the work. I just want to get it. And it's like, you got to put in the work. I'm sorry.
The Malcolm Gladwell.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah. I always tell my kids this, and I don't know how much of it they hear. And I may be a bad example because I work too much. It's something that I'm trying to heal right now. But like, there's anything worth having is at the top of a hill, right? Like anything that you've created, if it's worth it, you clawed your way there and you fell down a few times and you finally got up to that top of the hill, but then you still got to get back down the other side, but anything worth it is hard work.
Yeah. And if it's too easy, you don't want to do it. Right. Like there's no point.
No challenge.
Well, and that's the thing, and I always say to people, like my mom always said, if people don't hate you, you're not doing it right, because you need someone to challenge you, right? That person who hates you or dislikes what you do, it's not about winning them over and getting them on your side. It's about them understanding. And that's, that's the challenge, right? Like if someone's just like, craft beer sucks for this, you can be like, well, actually there's like all these other really great things, but you don't, at the end of the day, you don't have to be like, oh, great, now I'm always just going to buy it. I think that having those conversations and just getting people to like, so you can understand where the other is coming from.
Hey, Ren, a brewery that stands apart from all others in this town, I think, is Counterpoint Brewing. And I'll tell you why. They don't have the best location. They're very unassuming. Everything they do is beautiful bottles and amazing beers and really two nice,
simple,
nice guys. Yeah, very simple. They're not simplistic, but simple, right? And but something's working there for them. I've seen other breweries not make it. But what do you think a brewery like Counterpoint is doing right? And have you ever seen other breweries like that just kind of quietly, set up shop and somehow it works?
Yeah, I think that what they do, right, and I think it's hilarious that you're like, they're in a terrible spot, because I'm like, I drive past there all the time, so I just pop in. I mean, there are worse spots. There are. But I think that what they do is they have a connection to the community, and they work with specific people in specific communities that they, you can tell that there's a level of respect, that they're just like, I love what they do. Like, Chef Tennille Warren does just like amazing food, and they've done collaborations together. And I think that when they do things, they really highlight the people that they're working with. They're not just like, hey, we did a thing and here it is. They're like, hey, we did a thing and here's this person that we think is really fantastic. And here are things that you may not be, exposed to on the regular. So let's help you out while we get something good out of it too. And I think that their partnerships are really key, because they're also partnering with people who aren't in beer, which means that they are getting, it's twofold, right? So it's like the non-beer person is exposed to the beer culture. And so we get to learn about them and see how amazing they are. And then they're taking it back to places that are like, I didn't think that this would be for me. And they're, they did a sorrel sour beer that was like mind blowing, but that's a Caribbean drink. And that is, sorrel is a thing that Black people know, and to see it in a beer and to have it done successfully, it's just like these amazing pieces. So I think that, there's a lot of other breweries that are doing it right, but it's all about partnerships and then, putting out a great beer. But I think that it's partnerships first and foremost, having a welcoming space, having a safe space. And then once you're in there, you're like, oh, this is amazing. You're amazing. And the beer's really good.
Those guys also told us this great story about how, I'm not going to say this right, but they needed like some type of temperature tool thingy for their process. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. I don't. But they didn't have one. And another brewery, I think it was at Wellington, maybe, just said, hey, we have one and you can borrow it. We're not using it right now. And that close knit kind of help each other out. We're your neighbors. That's the thing that gets the city through something like what we're going through right now.
Yeah. And I think it's, that and collaborations like last year for Black is Beautiful. It was TWB, Counterpoint, Shortfinger, and Block 3, along with myself, and, did a collab on that. And all of those breweries come from such different points of like what they brew and how they brew. And it's great to see them come together and say, we're going to support our Black community and highlight what they do. And make a tasty beer on top of it. What
was the process there? Was it one recipe that everyone shared? Was it we're brewing, your canning? What was the process?
So Ontario laws are terrible. So it has to be brewed in one spot. And, but the recipe was coming from Weathered Souls in Texas. And so Marcus Baskerville came up with it. And so it was kind of an open source recipe that you could then tweak however you wanted to. So then they did like a couple little minor tweaks, but it was brewed at Block 3. And it was just great. It was a really awesome day to have a group of us kind of together and hanging out.
And it was a stout, wasn't it?
Yeah, they were all stouts. The original recipe was an imperial stout, which is a big ass beer to have in June. I think it was July or August that it got released, but people bought it. I mean, it's also a beer that you don't have to drink right away. So it was like, I mean, I have like a drawer worth of different versions of it that I'm just like, if it's a little chilly, I'll drink it.
Ren, in a country like Trinidad, and I guess this goes for a lot of Caribbean countries, what's the state of beer there? Like, have they gotten into craft brewing in that, or is it not? Are they not there?
Trinidad, no. It's a pretty small place. So it's Carib and Stag beer. At least as of a few years ago, the tagline was a man's beer.
Sorry, that really tickled me there.
I'm just gonna put this out there. You can have it. It tastes like warm piss. Honestly, I went and bought it, and I turned the can over, and I was like, "What even? Like, are you kidding me?" So Stag beer, a beer from men. But yeah, like Guinness is huge out there. So Guinness has cornered the Caribbean market, and actually, the Caribbean market is the biggest for Guinness.
Interesting.
I did not know that.
Yeah. So it's all about iron and how to access iron quickly, and so the beer has iron. There's also a West Indies port that they make that's a higher percentage. It's like 5.6, and that is specific for out there. So yeah, but yeah, the beer is fine. It's like Modelo, and it's just like it's a lot of lagers, and it's a lot of stuff that, again, clean, crisp. It's 35 degrees out. You're super hot. That's what you're going to drink. You're not like, oh, I got notes of, no, you don't.
I have notes of warm piss. This is fantastic.
Right? This must be Stag.
This must be for men.
I am never getting a sponsorship from them. But, and I mean, Carib is a great beer, and that's kind of the like national beer. But again, like there's no care, like that nerd thing that we all feel about it. Carib is in clear glass, and they're on shelves, so like it kind of gets skunked, but again, it doesn't matter because it's hot and you just needed it to be super cold. So yeah, there isn't that same thing about it. And I mean, like Jamaica has Red Stripe, which of course everyone loses their mind over. So, and that is bottled properly. But like, yeah, I don't think that there is really a craft beer scene. Like, I'm sure there are craft breweries popping up, and I just, I mean, I was on vacation, I wasn't looking for it, and there's probably a couple, but I mean, is Trinidad's big or not? Yeah, and they're not large countries, so you're like, I can go and see wild hummingbirds, or I can go look for a craft brewery. Like, I'm gonna go look at the wild hummingbirds and like some parrots. But yeah, I don't think it's a big thing.
And Ren, your website is absolutely beautiful.
Oh, it's so beautiful.
You go on it, and there's a couple paragraphs to read, and right away you're like, okay, I get it. I understand what
story
you're doing. How did you start to brand yourself? Like, did you sit down with somebody and say, this is what I'm picturing?
No, I had to do it backwards. So
works too.
This company wasn't supposed to be a thing. It was supposed to be a side project at most. And I had to put together a website, and I had to put together a name and things. So a friend of mine, Matthew, that I went to high school with, actually designed the logo. And he did it because he was just like, I love what you're starting to do, and I want to help you out. I did the original version of the website, which has since been changed. And it just needed to be a spot to like hold some stuff. Because, through the years I had been doing some media stuff and had been like showing up in spots. So I had things to put on the website, thankfully. And so I was able to like put something together. But with time, the website's been redone by Lindsay, who actually is one of the co-owners at Grain and Grit Brewery in Hamilton.
Amazing.
And so she did both websites for Beer Diversity and for Do Better, Be Better. And they're absolutely beautiful. So I'm just like, yay, thank you.
Shout out for transferable skills, everybody.
Right. And my headshots were done by good friends of mine. So my first series of headshots were done by like my ride or die best friend. And then the second shots, which were done last year, actually, were redone by Mona Musa, who's out here. And she's an absolute powerhouse and does PR for a bunch of different places and takes great photos.
And how comfortable were you with the public speaking when you started? Like, I guess you would have started when you actually had people in the same room with you.
Yeah, like we went through a whole process with this podcast where we're like, oh my gosh, we sound so dumb. We have to stop saying all these dumb things. Like we took it pretty seriously, right? I wasn't used to hearing my voice and all of the shit that I say all the time.
Yeah, we were reading stuff.
Yeah, it was like
okay, gotta stop that.
It's pretty bad.
Yeah, I think at the beginning, and again, I was lucky because I had a few things. I'd been working with Queen of Craft and doing presentations with their stuff. A few years of the March events beforehand. But I think the beginning, I was very like, bearded white guys are great in beer. We don't want to get rid of them. And then people would like take part of that and be like, you want to get rid of bearded white guys? And I'd be like, wait, what? No, like. So I think the first while the message wasn't super clear cut, and it was really about getting it into fast bites that made sense. And in terms of public speaking, I actually hate it. I have generalized anxiety disorder, which means that I freak out all the time. But I have worked in customer service. I used to work in life insurance in a call center. Wow. So I'm used to talking to people. Like I can do it. And I think that when I do talks, it's very, when they were in public, I had full routines and kind of like, center and like get used to these things and then go and do it. But I think that part of it was just, I'm getting a message out there and I'm trying to make this more digestible for folks who just don't know where to start. And now, I mean, I'm at home, right? So it's, pandemic public speaking is completely different and it's very comfortable and I actually really like it. But yeah, I think that at the beginning, it was really about getting my message down to like a 30-second soundbite.
The being at home part is it's a big puzzle piece because isn't that half the fear? Okay, I have to walk across this stage and not fall on my face before I get to my podium. And when I get there, are the lights going to be bright? Like that, I always think about that. The lights get not that I've done a ton of it. I've done some performing, but not public speaking per se. But those are the kind of things that run through my mind. What's it going to be like when I get out there? But if you're in your hole, I call it the home office. If you're in your hole and you're feeling comfortable and your cat's walking by and, you've got all your creature comforts nearby.
And that was a big piece. Cause also for some of those travel, like, there was a period of time where I think it was in probably mid 2019 where I went out to Denver. I came home for 2 days. I went to Ottawa. I came home for a day and a half. I went somewhere else. Like it was like bang, bang, bang. So it was, and when I'd get somewhere, I possibly would only have a few hours. So it'd be like, go clean yourself up. Like you've just driven or you've just gotten off a train or you've just gotten off a plane and like, now you got to go and be on. And so now it's like, I walked from my bedroom to the kitchen, I grabbed a coffee and now I've like wandered in, and it's just like, cool. Am I wearing pants? You'll never know. And I think that and just also the difference I see in people because they're at home and their dogs are around or like something that comforts them. And I find that people are a lot more open and a lot more willing to talk about their feelings about things and kind of the like, hey, we don't understand this and this worries me. And so it's been nice to kind of see the evolution of how it's gone.
Yeah. Asking a question over a Zoom presentation compared to raising your hand in an auditorium, big difference.
Or having to go back to an office where you're like, I think my boss is kind of racist, right? Like, or we did a thing that I'm super not cool with. And then you'd be in an office place and you'd be like, hey, that was a great question, right? Yeah. And now you're like, I'm at home. I'm just not going to answer the phone for the next hour.
Exactly. Oh, wow. Yeah. I didn't even think of that. Of course.
What's your setup for your podcast? Sarah takes care of all the technical parts. So
I'm the nerd.
But I am really curious about how everybody does it. It seems like everybody has a different way of.
Yeah. Everyone, podcast community, I think is like the beer community. Very neighborly. Everyone's willing to lend a helping hand and share advice, but we're all doing it differently. So how are you doing it?
Yeah. So it's actually through Skype because 1999 never died.
Nope.
And so it's the guys who actually do the Brewers Journal Canada. And they've got a Liquid Network. It's a podcast company or community that they're working on. So all I know is that it's through Skype. I show up, my guest shows up, Jacob does all the magic, and then boom, there it is. So
you're not editing and
I do nothing. I literally just show up.
That sounds kind of fun.
Yeah. What are you doing here in Kitchener-Waterloo? Like what brought you here?
Yeah.
So I was still working. I was a sales rep in Toronto, and my wife was looking for a job, and she got a job at Royal City Brewing. And because I was like, if you get a job there, like, we'll figure it out. Because I'm very like, yeah, whatever. And so she got the job, and her mom was living in Waterloo. So she was commuting back and forth and was like, this sucks. She'd be out here for a week, come back to Toronto. And I'd be like, all right, let's go find a place. And I was like, I just don't want to live in Guelph. No knock on Guelph. Guelph is beautiful. It's wonderful. Everything that I need to say, it's great. It's not for me.
Interesting.
Except I already knew Kitchener-Waterloo because we have a bunch of friends out here. And when I was a sales rep in Toronto, my territory actually extended out to Southwest Ontario. So I was spending a lot of time out this way. And so I just was like, let's do it. And so we packed up and we moved out here, and that's it.
When did it feel like home?
It's been awesome. Pretty soon.
Yeah?
It was because we also didn't have to go through the whole like, gee willikers, we got to make some friends. It was totally like, right. There were already a bunch of people, and all my rep friends are out here. And so it was pretty easy to settle into. And it just, the Toronto, like, fast pace thing dropped off pretty darn quick. And I don't think you could pay me to go back to Toronto. Like, no knock on Toronto, because obviously I lived there for a very long time, but I don't miss the breakneck speeds of it.
And Ren, how would you describe the landscape of craft brewing in Waterloo Region? Like, if you were talking to somebody who's never been here before, how would you describe it?
I think it's just as good as the other areas. I don't think that Waterloo Region craft beer has anything that makes it different from like Toronto or from Ontario craft beer in general. I think that if you want to go a little bit outside of that, like, we have Burncat who are making these like amazing killer IPAs, Third Moon in Milton, where people are going nuts over it. So I think that some of the things that Waterloo Region and kind of surrounding areas are doing, they are bucking the trends, or at least they're moving a little faster on some of the trends, and that they're nailing them. But I think that with the ability to get stuff shipped or through a bottle shop or whatever, like, people aren't missing it. And I think that the great piece is that Waterloo Region beers are making it outside of our area. And so, talk to people in Toronto, they know who Short Finger Brewing is. They, they'll know about Block 3, and they'll know about a bunch of breweries that are here. So I don't think that they're like these secret little niche spots anymore. Whereas a few years ago, I think that they would have been. And I think that the big difference is because of the pandemic, it's changed how we get our beer and how we talk about beer and how we put it out there.
Hey all, thanks for meeting us in Bonn Park. Please like, rate, and subscribe to our podcast on the platform that you're listening to. And follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Bonn Park Podcast. Original music by Alan Lung.